So you let us know when we're live. They can. Good. All right, I'm listening. So we're doing a sound check here before this evening's Board of Education meeting, anticipating that it's going to be highly attended. So I am just kind of speaking in a regular tone as we would in the meetings. So Joel and Delicato can check the sound. All right. So do you need any more verbiage or we're good to go?
you. Hey, Mike Connors, can you turn your camera on? You're the only one we can't see. Okay, good evening, everybody. Call the meeting to order. If we could all rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag,
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move right into the superintendent's report. Mr. Brooks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. For those that are live streaming us on YouTube, I am glad you are here with us tonight. We have a series of important information to present to our Board of Education and to our public, so I'm glad you're joining us. Before I get into our Return to Learn plan, I would like to actually make a wonderful announcement. During the 1920 school year, we received notification that our high school has been named a school of distinction by the Athletic Association. So that means that 100% of our athletic teams were deemed athletic scholars. To be an athletic scholar team, you need to have 75% of your roster get a 90 or higher average. So all of our teams during the 1920 school year achieved the athletic scholar status, and that makes our high school a school of distinction. Congratulations to Jonna and all our coaches, and certainly most of all of our athletes, our scholar athletes. It's just a wonderful accomplishment. Congratulations to you all. So the primary purpose that we're getting together tonight is obviously we have a board meeting, but we also have some very important information related to our Return to Learn plan for September. Certainly what we're about to enter into is one of the most challenging experiences that any of us has ever experienced. Reintroducing our staff and reintroducing our students back into school and also back into learning is a task that no one has ever experienced before after a pandemic in the modern era. So figuring out how we can pull our people back together, all in the same direction, and create a learning environment that all can prosper in and have that opportunity to prosper is certainly a challenge. In the short term, we've got physical safety and emotional safety that we have to be concerned with. And in the long term, we have physical wellness and emotional wellness that we need to be extraordinarily concerned with. In order for learning to happen, physical wellness and emotional wellness are foundational. So this is our challenge. We absolutely have the right people at MCSD to accomplish this as long as we're all pulling in the same direction together at the same time. So let's get into our plan. New York State Education Department and the Department of Health in New York State, as a response to the COVID pandemic, have set up a set of requirements for us that we must adhere to in order to open schools in September. Primarily, the State Education Department, the New York State Education Department, focuses on regulations, teaching and learning, and the physical environment of cleaning our schools. And the Department of Health primarily focuses on providing direction to NYSET relating to guidelines for staying open and how to respond to emergencies. Our goal as a school district is to open all schools with all staff and all students present. So how do we do this? Well, we have to assure things. We've got to assure that we seek input. We have to assure that we can create a regimen for training staff and students so that we can be together in our buildings safe. And we also have to acquire supplies so we can clean things, maintain cleanliness, and also allow hygiene for personal hygiene. We also need to plan, and we need to adapt, and we have to be prepared to pivot because things could change at any time. Generally speaking, oh, by the way, this presentation is on our Board Docs website, and it will be sent out to all of our families tomorrow as soon as we're done with this presentation. So I will be running through the slides. If you have any questions regarding them, it will all be posted on our website and sent out tomorrow, but it's already on our board docs website for tonight's board meeting. So there are serious things that we must do in order to open. Some of those things, as I said, come from the Department of Health. Some of those are informed by the Centers for Disease Control at a federal level, and some of those are informed by the New York State Education Department. Things like wearing masks, social distancing, limiting visitors, transportation protocols, accommodations for students at high risk, and other protocols for staff members and drills are absolutely things that are part of our detailed plan, which will be submitted to the State Education Department tomorrow. Tonight's purpose is to give you a broader overview with some diving into the details so that you can begin to plan as a family. We will be taking advantage of training regimen and videos and posters that have been provided by the CDC. It's nice to see that some of the posters that they have been producing in the past are starting to become kid-friendly, and you can see that on the slide that's in front of you. Many of these posters we already use around our buildings for staff, but we want to also present some posters that look more kid-friendly and a little more language that our children, especially our younger children, can be familiar with. So we will be using the resources that are already provided for us. Health and safety precautions. Rose, did you want to speak on the health and safety precautions area, please?
Sure. Certainly. As the district has been working on this plan, I've met with our Health and Safety Committee a few times and worked with all the guidelines and regulations that are out there. And we are working very hard to make sure we have every safety precaution in place for school to open. We are working on our entrance criteria, our temperature scanning and surveying of staff as well as students. All offices and classroom spaces will either have a sink or a sanitizing station depending on their location. As Mr. Brooks said, we are working on social distancing signs and graphics to support appropriate separation in common areas, hallways, and classrooms. We will be doing hand washing and mask education for students, staff, as well as the parents. We have a large supply of disposable and cloth masks on hand for staff and for students who come without masks. And we do also have several on order as well. We'll be supplying our staff with shields for the teachers to use within the classroom, as well as safety bags for them to take with them if they travel from classroom to classroom. And those safety bags will include gloves, masks, shields, sanitizer, and gloves, and additional masks for students should they break or get misplaced. We have enhanced cleaning protocols with our custodians. Larry Cavazza has worked well with his staff to make sure that we're cleaning regularly and filling out the proper documentation. Should I go ahead with transportation, Mr. Brooks? So I've been working with Quality Bus to make sure that once our plan is set in place, that we appropriately transport all our students. They have been a really great partner with us talking about logistics. And once we have our set runs in place, they are preparing for enhanced cleaning protocols for their buses, PPE for their drivers. We will do our best to socially distance on a bus, and we will be requiring all students to wear masks on the bus. Once we have a set plan in place, the transportation department will work vigorously to get our transportation routes out to parents so that they are aware of what's going on. We're also encouraging families, if they choose to do so, to drive their students to school. That would lower the number of students on the bus.
Thank you, Rose. Appreciate that. The next slide deals with food services. So I'm actually going to ask Robin Heck to speak to this slide. This is an important element, certainly has been for the last number of months for any of our families that have taken advantage of the food service program that we've had in place at the Snack Shack at the high school. But our food service requirements will continue when we do return to the buildings in September. And Robin's been working with our food service staff and director and can speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. For food service, if we are in school, we will be looking at the...
I'm not able to hear you, Robin.
We could hear her, Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
We can hear it.
Okay.
Again, some of the options that we have will be grab and go, eat in the classroom using social distancing. In the classroom is when the children will have to social distance and be very strict with that, because that is when they'll be able to remove their masks. We'll be using disposable trays and disposable flatware. In the cafeterias, the same social distancing will be put in place with monitoring of the students. We will also be taking advantage of using the outside areas in good weather, again, social distancing, and the snack shack for those whom do not attend school. Food service, if is closed, we will be using the snack shack, and we are responsible for feeding children who are in school or not attending in school, so on our A/B schedules.
Thank you very much, Robin.
You're welcome.
Next few slides also get into how we got to where we are. I want to make sure that I point out a special note for our food service staff. As Robin just mentioned, we have been working diligently for months now, our food service staff has, and I want to thank them. They've been doing a wonderful job weekly, working on feeding our families, preparing food, preparing the meals so that they can be distributed, and they have done it with no complaint. So thank you very much to our food service staff for what they have been doing. So that really is a segue into how did we get to the plan we are unveiling today, and Robin's going to speak to who helped.
As you can see on the slide, there are several committees that are listed here. Within each of those committees are smaller building committees. When we began the Instructional Plan Committee, there were 70 plus members. At this point, I would say we're close to 100 plus members who are contributing valuable information daily. Each building has an instructional advisory committee. There's a stakeholder committee, building administration task force, a central task force, building subcommittees that are dealing with several different topics, as well as meeting with department chairs, team leaders, grade level, and the non-instructional staff. The technology committee is meeting with Mr. Precautions, he and I are hand in hand with a lot of our decisions with regards to device and access. We've sent multiple surveys. I think my last count was 25 to gather information from students, faculty, staff, parents, and community members. We are continuing to create more surveys to give us more detailed information as we get closer to the opening of school. At present, we have had over 2,000 people participate in our surveys, as well as over 1,000 comments have been reviewed and categorized so that we could respond and help build our plans. Looking at these survey findings, we found that 8 out of the 9 groups surveyed selected a hybrid model. One of the groups selected a full remote learning model with a very close tie of a hybrid. 70% of the parents expressed needing their children to participate in Google Meets 1 to 3 days, depending on what building and what age the children were. The perspectives for the learning models for fall, we found that 50% of the families selected a hybrid model and helped build our plan. A Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule where siblings were attending on the same day. A very close second was remote learning. 40% of the families stated they would not send their children to school in kindergarten. Another 30 to 36% are on the fence. 30% of the families are not comfortable with in-person learning, although 52% did agree that they would let their children play sports if we did attend. 42% of the K-2 parents are not comfortable with their children wearing masks, 24% at the middle school and 20% at the high school. When we just looked at the findings for the bus transportation, we found that 69% of the participants stated they would allow their child to ride the bus with a mask, and 55% stated they would drive their children to school if it was necessary. Child care findings, 22% of the people that answered the survey selected that they would need childcare. Parents stated that even if we did go back, remote, hybrid, whatever the model was, they would prefer to continue using Google Meets for the meetings, such as Meet the Teacher, September opening, etc. Learning resources across the board unanimously, participants reported that to be successful in the online learning environment, we would need wireless internet, device, and traditional school supplies. Of the surveys, there were several comments, as we mentioned before, over 1,000, and we categorized them. Please understand that many of these comments here are positive. They were things that they saw and would like to see continued. If not continued, they'd like to see more of. A consistent schedule with more face-to-face interaction, live recorded lessons, training on Google Meet and other platforms, curriculum development to address the identified academic gaps, academic intervention, addressing social and emotional needs of students, looking at our grading procedures, classwork, homework, accountability for attendance, co-teaching in an online learning environment and adherence to IEPs, student access to technology, PPE, and training for staff and students.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So as we now move into the 3 required elements, the plan that I have to submit tomorrow on behalf of the school district, as required by the State Education Department and the Governor's Office, requires us to put together 3 models for instruction. So as we develop those 3 models, we had a basis for our development was this set of goals: preserve in-person instruction, provide distance learning options, 1 marking period at a time, address certainly academic, emotional, and social needs. And I want to make sure I reiterate too, as we move into September, grades count. So marking period grades will be produced as normal. So there will be tests, there will be quizzes, there will be homework, and there will be grading of all of that. And it will all count towards averages for marking periods and quarter grades and final grades. At the same time, we need to minimize risks. So we need to keep our people safe. Our children and our staff members need to be trained and knowledgeable about what we have to do in an environment where we are together in a learning space and stay safe at the same time. And preparing to change. There are always going to be opportunities where we may be presented with a curveball, and that curveball is going to come at us quick. And we will be prepared to make any changes that are necessary and communicate those changes to our public as soon as possible. So the instructional plans are broken into 3 areas. As directed by the Governor and the State Education Department, we have all staff and students returning to school every day in class. So that's similar to what a regular school year might look like. We also have to develop a plan for all staff and students to stay home with remote learning, similar to what we did in the springtime. And then we also need to develop a hybrid of in-person and online, and that's really a mix of a mix of in-person learning and also online learning. So let me get into some details about these 3 plans. Our classroom environment should maintain the same basic foundation in all areas, whether we're in person or whether we're online. We need to manage class sizes so we can help maintain safety. We need to require face coverings. It's absolute. Face coverings must be worn while you're in our schools and on our buses. We will try our best to keep students in cohort groups so they minimize the amount of student movement. That will be more challenging at the high school level than it will at the lower levels. Lunch procedures will be different. Cafeteria experiences will be different in how we weather ourselves through our cafeteria and eating experiences, because when children and staff are eating, they will be unmasked. So there will be need for us to have some additional space between people during those periods of time. Frequent hand washing and personal hygiene is of paramount in all of this. And we will make sure we have significant efforts at producing capabilities. So with washing stations, sinks, and sanitizing areas. So the capability and the possibility is there, but also reinforcing it with our teaching staff so that they ensure that students know how important it is for personal hygiene. Any of you that have had a significant amount of time with a mask on, know you need some breaks sometime also. So we will make sure that we build in mask breaks so that you can just kind of calm down and breathe for a little bit without a mask on. And we'll figure out ways that we can encourage that in our spaces. Hallway passing certainly will be a challenge. So figuring out how we can stagger some of those times so we can reduce the number of people in a hallway at any given time. Those congregate spaces, whether you're hallways, whether you're in a classroom, we want to try to reduce the concentration of people in any given space at any given time. So option one for an in-person option, that's all students and staff every day in our schools. It resembles what a regular school year that we're used to. Regardless of that, the regulations and health protocols require we must maintain all safety guidelines if all of our people return back to our schools. Masks, social distancing, and our cleaning protocols. There's a major issue with that, though. Maintaining distancing within our schools with all of our people present, all students and all staff, is a significant challenge that we may have difficulty fulfilling. That will most likely be a very difficult challenge for us to be able to accomplish, just because of the sheer number of people. If you normally have 20 or 25 people in a classroom and you need to be able to separate and distance within a classroom, there's no way to do that in a regular classroom without either reducing the number of people in the room or expanding the walls. And obviously we can't expand the walls. We still also need to serve breakfast and lunch, and we need to do it in a safe way. And then paramount to that is we need to meet our learning standards requirements. A remote online option is very similar to what we did in the spring. It's all students online every single day, fully online, all students. However, we want to take it to a whole new level. So we need to redefine what a minimum instructional expectation is. And right now, our instructional leaders with our principals, our assistant principals, and most importantly, our department chairs and our grade level leaders are working very hard developing what those specific parameters are as it relates to their program. Our teachers know exactly what they have to do to accomplish all of their program, and they're going to help guide our knowledge base as far as what we're going to expect of our children. And we're going to clearly communicate that to our children, to our staff, and to our families, so they know exactly what our model and how our model works on a day and weekly basis. We are also working on a purchase. As a matter of fact, the purchase order went in today so that we can fulfill a desire to provide a device for all students K through 5. The devices at the younger levels will most likely be iPads, and the older students in the elementary level will be Chromebooks. That way we can ensure that families at home have a device for all of the children in their household if we're in a remote online option. So K-12, our goal for this fall is to have every child in a household that attends Marlborough School District to have their own device provided by the school district. We're able to fulfill that gap that our elementary school did not have a one-to-one experience because of significant federal funding that we received under the CARES Act in the last few weeks. And as I said, that purchase order is out, and we expect to get those machines in our hands in the next month or two. Obviously, there's a supply chain issue because everybody under the sun wants to get a Chromebook these days, so we're working on it. And we expect to get those in as soon as possible. We also need to have some technology supports for streaming in our classrooms, and we have a very strong backbone within our within our buildings. We have done a significant amount of work with our infrastructure. We have up-to-date servers, we have up-to-date routers, up-to-date wiring, up-to-date wireless access. So our technology backbone in our schools is very strong. There are some issues, however. What will this instructional model look like? We're working on developing those details, so we tighten up where we were in the spring so that we have a stronger and more focused instructional model this fall. Student schedules need to be provided. So we have to work on that careful balance so that there's enough structure in a student's day, but there's also enough flexibility so that a family can manage online learning if we are in that mode. And also have to work on staff schedules. Another issue is this model is fully dependent upon the executive order that may or may not come from Governor Cuomo. And I'll speak to that in just a moment. The blended model or the hybrid model, we're calling a hybrid option AB. So this is a mix of in-person and online. So in the hybrid model, your children will attend school on alternate days, either Tuesdays and Thursdays or Wednesdays and Fridays. So if you look at the chart at the bottom of the page, Group A would be attending in school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that same group would be at home online learning Wednesdays and Fridays. Group B is the opposite of that. Group B is online on Tuesdays and Thursdays and in school on Wednesdays and Fridays. During those days when you're in school, you're following your regular school schedule. So your courses, your periods, your teachers are your same teachers as if you were in the school every single day. One of the experiences we had in the spring, and families were loud and clear about this, as was our staff, is that there were a number of shortfalls in our students' participation rate. And assignments went missing, and students were partially participating in some of our online work. And we really need to tighten that up so that families don't have to carry the entire burden themselves. So as I said, we are expecting to clearly identify our instructional expectations for what a student's day and week looks like from an instructional perspective. How much time are you going to be online? How many things are you going to be expected to do in any given day and in any given week? In order to help communicate how well your child is progressing in that model, we've built in a CNC day. And that CNC day simply stands for communication and collaboration. And the expectation for the CNC day is on a Monday, on every Monday, all students are at home completing and finishing and working on their online work and assignments that have been assigned the prior week and preparing for the week that's coming. And teachers will coordinate that with your children. During the day on Monday, all staff will be in our schools working from their classrooms, enhancing their communication and collaboration between teachers and students, teachers and families, teachers and other teachers, and also teachers and administrators. That way, we can make sure we tighten up our communication gaps that did exist in the fall. We want to make sure that our teachers have the time and the expectation that they're going to communicate with families and be very, very clear with how their children are progressing, and not wait till the end of a marking period. We want to have that communication very frequently. Certainly, there are opportunities for that communication during the course of the week, so there always will be communication during the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday sessions, but Monday is solely dedicated to that, so there should be no gaps in communicating and collaborating with our staff, with our families, with our children, and that is the primary purpose for the CNC Day. There are a few things that we still need to work on here. A key piece and cornerstone of this AB option was that you will have, for family daycare planning purposes, a set schedule every week. So if you are in Group A, you will know that your children will be in school on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. If you are in Group B, you will know that your children will be in school every Wednesday and Friday. And that will continue as long as we are in a hybrid option, if the governor so directs. We think that that's a good way for families to plan in the event we have to move to this option, or if we start the school year in this option, they can plan what their childcare needs are in what we know is a challenging situation. I know there's a question going to be immediately asked, which group am I going to be in? There will be a basis for the grouping of Group A and Group B. It will primarily be an alphabetic basis. So earlier in the alphabet will be Group A, and later in the alphabet will be Group B, but it won't be purely alphabetical because we also want to make sure that if there are siblings or any other accommodations that we need to meet where the last names don't exactly match, we will put you in the same group. That way, if you have an older sibling or an older situation that older student that requires a coordination with a younger child, we'll make sure you have the same day. And our principals will coordinate that in the coming weeks and identify which families are in Group A and which children are in Group A and which ones are in Group B. They're working on that right now and also going to be working on that with our guidance counselors and our counseling staff and our teacher leaders. We also have identified a priority group, and some identified students in the priority group will be attending school every day, Tuesday through Friday. Initially, that priority group will be all of our self-contained special education students, K through 12. They will be attending school every day, Tuesday through Friday, and just like the rest of the schools, they will be online on Mondays during the CNC Day. We also would like to be able to offer right up front at the beginning of the school year an online academy. But if you notice this page, I've got a bunch of asterisks all over the page because as we sit here tonight, This choice option is not an allowable option. Right now, the governor only allows 3 options for the plan that I have to submit tomorrow. What's our plan for full in-person? What's our plan for online learning? And what's our plan for a hybrid model? So I just went over those 3 models with you. We would also like to offer an online academy, which is an online selection, and it's chosen by marking period. So if there's a family that is concerned about returning to school in the fall and are at a quandary of choosing between their concerns and sending their child, we would like to be able to offer an online option right from the get-go. And you would make a commitment to that online option for a semester at a time. I'm sorry, a marking period at a time. There are a number of issues with this model. Currently, we're not allowed to do this. Also, how will we select children for this model? What would be the criteria that we would allow children to select this type of model? Who will teach in this model? Which of our staff will be selected for this? If we have someone in this model, what will an instructional day look like? And will program and course offerings be limited? There are a lot of very specific, very individualized singleton courses at the middle school and high school, mostly concentrated at the high school, that are very difficult to duplicate in multiple ways. So, for example, if you have an AP physics course, it's very difficult to have that taught if you only have one section of it in an online and in-person brick and mortar scenario. So those are some issues that we're going to have to deal with. We will tackle those issues, but the first issue that has to get tackled is the governor has to allow us to do something like this, to give the option to our families. Let me go back to the hybrid model just for a quick second. A piece I did not cover in the hybrid model is our students that go to Orange Ulster or any of the BOCES or any of our out of district placements. So we've been notified by Orange Ulster BOCES, which is where our primary, it's the primary source for our special education programming. Special education students will attend Orange Ulster BOCES and those placements every day, Monday through Friday. And the CTEC, the career and technical programs for our high school students that attend Orange Ulster BOCES for the CTEC program will be on an every other day basis. So our high school staff is working on coordinating that with our BOCES partners. So special education students that attend out of district placements at Orange Ulster BOCES will attend Monday through Friday at Orange Ulster BOCES, and CTEC students will be every other day, AB. So let's just talk in general, in-person and online learning. What do they look like? In-person learning is something we're all very familiar with. Students and teachers follow their regular schedules, whether you're at the elementary school, the middle school, or high school. You go to your courses, you go to your classes, you go to your programs, and you follow your regular schedule. Obviously, in the environment that we're dealing with right now with health concerns, distancing is a concern of ours. So that's something that we are anxiously awaiting some direction from the governor on. The governor has preserved the absolute right and authority to tell districts which model you will be using when we come to September. He has notified us, and maybe you've seen it on his daily press briefings, he should be letting school districts, whether it's by region, by county, or individual school districts, how he's going to select which model we are to follow. He should be notifying us sometime during the first week of August. So if we're in an online learning model, what does that look like? And this is where students and staff schedules will be determined. That's that group that's right now working on developing what do we expect in an online learning environment. We did something monumental in the spring as a community. Families and students and staff turned on a dime to pull the wagon in a completely different direction. And I know, speaking with staff members, speaking with students, and also certainly speaking with our families and our board representatives that are keenly in tune with this, we did better in June than we did in March. We grew and we adapted, and there was a metamorphosis that occurred. But we are all fully committed to doing even significantly better this fall. So we need to tighten things up as our expectations have grown, but we also need to make sure we maintain a level of flexibility. So that's what our staff's working on right now. Standards must be met. We have to prepare for assessments that have not yet been canceled. We have to prepare for Regents exams because they are part of an educational program in New York State. But also that balance, making sure that our families can manage this in their homes. So we are going to be working on that intently over the next several weeks. Support for staff and students. So obviously, as we return, and as I stated early on in my presentation, social emotional pieces are paramount. We're going to have staff and students returning to buildings that they haven't been in months. They're going to be returning into an environment that looks and feels differently because we've got signs all over the place, and we've got people with masks on, and there's temperature checking, and there's scanning and screening and questions and things dealing with health that we have not been doing as a group. Certainly, you're starting to see some of those experiences out in society right now, but we haven't done it in school. So we need to be prepared to help people move into that environment in a way that deals with their social and emotional sides. And we also need to make sure that we understand that our educational model shifts for this fall as well. Training for online platforms, training for reminders of personal hygiene. We all need to be in this together and remind each other every day. If we stay safe, if we stay healthy, if we stay clean, and we stay with our masks and we stay distance as much as possible, we will be able to get through this together. This Board of Education and this administration have taken some actions, and the Board of Education is considering tonight a calendar change. And the calendar change is for really for the first 2 weeks of September. So the original calendar that was adopted, students were going to begin coming to school on September 2nd. If the Board of Education adopts the calendar change tonight, they are considering it tonight, we will not have students begin in our schools until Tuesday, September 8th. That's the Tuesday after Labor Day. That would preserve the days of September 1st through the 4th for training days for our staff. It's training on protocols, it's technology support, it's curriculum instruction planning, and teachers resetting their classrooms and moving things and preparing for the children as they come back in. Important time that I think all of you would agree that our teachers need to spend time really digesting this and making the necessary adjustments so their children can come in to a welcoming environment. Then the second week of September, which would begin September 8th, the Tuesday after Labor Day, we would begin a rolling in-person reopening. So at this point, we would look at about 25% of each school would attend on each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Principals are working on who those groups are, and we will notify families as soon as possible so you know which day will be your rolling day for returning to school beginning Tuesday, September 8th, all the way to that Friday. And then we would anticipate then moving into whichever is the model the governor selects or directs for us, beginning on Monday, the 13th of September. I'm sorry, Monday the 14th, excuse me, Monday the 14th. We're calling this a soft reopening. We're helping people get reacclimated to each other, reacclimated to the space, reacclimated to protocols, and it gives us time to really train and get ourselves prepared for a proper learning environment come that third Monday. We also are building in supports for families, training for online tools. Social emotional supports are vitally important. Our guidance, our psychologists, our social worker staff, and our teachers act as counselors all the time, and we need to make sure that we are there for our families. We will build in a regular check-in process so that we can check in with our families to find out, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are there supports that you need? Can we make referrals to anything that's educationally supported, or is there some social emotional support? We know that this is a challenging time for us, and as we sit here tonight, I certainly hope that you or any of your family members are not dealing with any health matters. But if you are, we're with you and we're behind you. And we want to make sure that we provide as much support as we can for you. We are also committed to getting that communication out and making sure that we keep you informed. So while tonight is a beginning and you get an overview of our plan, I'm committing to you that there will be a lot more communication during the month of August, and certainly once we get into the fall, so that we can keep each other up to date and up to speed. And we also will continue to have our food and nutrition supports in place. Communication is key. We have our Marlboro alert system. We use it frequently with emails, texts, voicemails. We certainly will be sending out information by regular mail. I have a letter going out to the entire our families tomorrow. We will send it out electronically, but we are also going to be putting in envelopes so we make sure we get that into people's hands. And it's some more detail regarding what we're talking about tonight. And we also need to be clear and simple in the way that you can communicate with us. So we're doing some work on our website. We're making sure we redesign so that the return to learn portions of our website are easy to work with, easy to manage, easy to maneuver, so that families and children have a paved, smooth path for getting to our instructional platforms. We certainly have some outstanding questions and issues, and I want to make sure I highlight this before I open up to any questions that our board has. The Commissioner of Education has left or will be leaving in the middle of August. So the person that is driving the train and our leader up in Albany is no longer going to be our leader come mid-August. The Board of Regents has committed to identifying a new person, but that certainly does introduce a challenge for us as superintendents. BOCE's integration is key. Special education will be every day, and CTEC will be going on every other day, but we are in constant contact with our BOCE's colleagues at the instructional level, at the special education level, and also at the leadership level. I'm sorry, my screen just went berserk for a little second, but we also have to watch for commissioners' regulation changes and where the governor is regarding the 180-day rule. So for those of you that aren't aware, school districts must be in person, in session for 180 days a school year. So there has to be a governor's executive order that changes that expectation in order for us to qualify for all of our aid for the 2021 school year. That change was made back in the spring where the governor waived the 180-day rule because obviously we were not in person for all 180 days last school year. The question mark about 3 through 8 assessments, the ELA tests, the math tests, and the science tests. Those are written into law at the federal and at the state level. So any changes to the 3 through 8 tests would have to come from the federal government and also from the state legislature and our governor, unless there's a governor's executive order that overrides that. Regents tests are a little bit different. Those are regulated by the education commissioner, and they are tests that occur every January and June. And as we sit right now, those tests are still scheduled for the 2021 school year. A question is, what authority will superintendents or boards have in determining the model? Right now, the governor has stated publicly that education and schools opening is a governor's responsibility, and he will make the decision of what happens for us in September. We as superintendents just have to be prepared to go with one of the 3 models that he has directed us to prepare for. Clubs and activities. These are wonderful experiences that our kids participate in every year. It really rounds out our 3 A's. Our academics, our arts, and our athletics are so important in Marlboro. And we would like to keep our clubs and activity experience going for the 2021 school year, but we would like to challenge our staff that run those programs to come up with innovative ways to run those programs in a virtualized environment. We still have to work on ways to minimize personal contact so it minimizes the chance for the spread of the coronavirus, but we still want to have these experiences because we know that these are great escapes from the academics and great escapes from concerns and worries that people have. So we will be challenging our staff that run these programs to come up with virtualized ways to run our clubs and activities. Sports, our athletic director has been keenly in tune with the state perspective on where sports are right now. Again, that is a decision that comes from the state level, but Jonna O'Donnell is directly involved in feeding information to our state leaders on what sports are and how they should work during the course of the school year. And she is on the edge of her seat waiting for what's going to happen with sports. Right now, sports are delayed, and a decision on sports are delayed until the latter part of September. And I know that she is on pins and needles hoping to get some information on what that will be. Again, our sports teams work all year long, so we know that regardless of of decisions on sports, I know that our coaches will come up with virtualized ways to run their sports programs and keep our athletes at the top of their game as much as they possibly can. We actually, as I said, and it's worth saying again, we need to define our educational expectations so families know exactly what their children are doing on a daily and a weekly basis. And then our C&C days can become productive days for communicating how well children are progressing and not wait for a full marking period. We need to work on our website still. We're committed to that. We will have a Return to Learn website that will be a bold and easy and clean way to access all of the information you need to be successful during the course of the school year. We're looking at our code of conduct to see if there's anything that we have to deal with regarding our mask wearing requirement and also with attendance. So attendance will be required whether you are online or whether you are in person. And that is a piece that we will enforce through our code of conduct. And I want to make sure I say it loud and clear. Mask wearing is a requirement. It is not an option. Health and safety. Working with our health staff, we're working with health director, and we're working with the Department of Health at Ulster County level. Dr. Smith, the Commissioner of Health, has been on multiple phone calls with superintendents. I was just on a call with her again this week. And the health staff at the Department of Health up in Kingston is committed to working with the nursing staff in all the schools and training the nursing staff in all of our schools on all the required and vital health protocols related to coronavirus. We also need to significantly enhance the availability of cleaning supplies. We have been ordering and we have a lot of supplies. As Ms. Mealy had stated earlier, we have a well-stocked supply of health and cleaning supplies. But just like you're experiencing at home, there are some types of supplies that are also very difficult to get. It's hard to get wipes, and we really could use some more wipes. So we are looking for any sources, and I'll put a call out there to those several hundred people that are on the YouTube call right now. If you know great sources for antibacterial wipes, please let us know because we need more wipes. We would like to have those in our schools. We certainly would encourage families to put together little health and hygiene kits to send their children into school with. And families can determine what goes in that kit themselves. And we'll probably send out some communications with some recommendations of what you can, some hygiene items that you can send your children to school with so they can keep their locker clean and keep their desks cleaned and keep their touch points clean. So it's a new reality for all of us, and it's the same thing in school. We are buying as many supplies and stocking as many supplies as we possibly can. But just like you, we are experiencing some shortfalls in some areas. And we also hope that the board will be considering tonight updating the student calendar for the beginning of September so we can prepare for all of you to return to learn. So with that, I'd like to open to any questions, Mr. Milazzo, and move on to other pieces that you would like me to.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Karen, we'll start with you.
I don't know why, Frank, but I can't hear you. I think it.
I hear you, Frank.
Yeah, I can hear Frank too.
This is Karen.
Right, Karen.
I can hear you, Karen. Yes.
My first question is, I actually have a few. My first question is, I saw the plan where it's and you expressed that the teachers would be in on Monday for the C&C day. But my other question is, are the teachers going to be in on the virtual days, or will they be working from home?
Fantastic question. So the details will certainly matter by the executive order that shuts us down. If you're talking about if we're fully online, Karen?
No, the hybrid day, the hybrid. Actually, both. If they're fully online and if they're the hybrid day. So, like, let's say I'm a teacher and I'm in school and I have students just on Tuesday and Thursday. Would I be working with my kids online on Wednesday and Thursday? Would I be home, or would I have kids in school that day? Like, how
terrific question. So the group A and group B are the student groups. Staff is in every day, Monday. So if I'm a teacher that teaches, in the middle school, I'll have half of my students on Tuesday and the other half of my students in my class on Wednesday, and vice versa for Thursday and for Friday. So the staff is in school every single day, and in the hybrid model, teaching half of their students on each of those days. Students are the ones that vary from in school to online, but the staff is in person in school every single day.
Okay.
If we're in an online environment, if we're in a fully online environment, certainly the students would be home because the governor has directed that to happen. But staff is a question mark, and that depends upon what the governor's executive order says. We believe that there is an opportunity for staff to use our schools for online learning, and we'll assess that depending upon what happens and the reason why schools were closed, if they are closed, again, hypothetically, in the future to go fully online.
So,
good question, though. Thank you.
Is this a regular school day too when we look at it? So like, is it the normal drop off pickup times that school will be that we're used to having?
That would be correct. The first week back as the soft opening, so to speak, that will probably be a varied day. We'll use either an hour or 2 hour delay that day, and then 25% of the students will come each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But once that soft opening is done, the following week, we return right back to full online, full in person, or a hybrid, depending upon what the governor directs. But Monday the 14th would be basically starting back to regular school, regular time.
Okay, 2 more questions. My next question is about daycare. It's been said in the media and by some of our New York State senators that the Mid-Hudson area is, they described it as a desert for daycare for parents. Is there any way that our district is going to be helping parents actually find daycare centers that are going to have these alternating models? And if we are we going to have daycare centers that are going to be able to help them with their online work or have access for these students to be able to do their online work? Otherwise, we're looking at kids that are going to be at daycare all day and then going home at night and doing the homework when they get home at night.
Yeah, another great question, Karen. So Robin Hecht has been spending a lot of time in the spring connecting families with daycare providers, and we have a number of very good daycare providers in our community. We've also had a dialogue with starting the Y-Scoop program up again at our elementary school. The director from the Kingston Y program, Noelle, is in contact. I've spoken with her on the phone this week, and Robin and Patty Walsh are preparing some meetings with Noelle to get the Y-Scoop program up for the aftercare program. But we also had a dialogue, and I know James will appreciate this question because he asked it of us earlier. I directly spoke with Noelle about does the Y have a capacity to create a daycare program for the day, not just the aftercare program? And I explained how a hybrid model may work, and that this is obviously something I'd be advocating for Marlboro, but it's going to be a regional issue. But would there be something that the Y could put together in a location somewhere within our school district to help families out? Obviously, our buildings will be full if we're in a hybrid A-B model. If we're in an online model, it's a different story. They won't be full. But if we're in a hybrid online model, it will be full. So I wouldn't be able to provide her any space. But she absolutely said that is something that's very interesting, and she thinks she can build more capacity for daycare through the Y. So
that's wonderful.
Robin and Patty and Noelle are going to be exploring that. We certainly can't force any private companies to expand their operations, and the Y is a quasi-private incorporated program. But I was encouraged by her reaction. So hopefully that's something that she can then help our community out by building some capacity for daycare for our families, because we know it's a real issue.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about kids going home to, especially young kids going home and no one being in the house. My last question, because I want to give other people a chance, is we haven't talked about with the cohorts, how is this going to work with if a student gets sick and does come down with the coronavirus? Would a whole cohort get shut down? Would a whole school get shut down? How would siblings be notified? Is it a 14-day quarantine or a 10-day quarantine? What's required for them to come back? Do they need 1 negative test, 2 negative tests? What's the requirement right now? And what are they actually defining as close quarters? Because today they just started, Dr. Fossey said now that people need to wear goggles or face shields in addition to the mask. So are we, what are we actually going to be requiring, and how are we going to let parents know if this does happen?
Another great question. That is a topic that is a hot topic with the Department of Health, and there are written guidelines from the CDC. It's all part of our plan that's submitted tomorrow. However, every single situation that arises within our congregate settings, and that's really the word that's being used now, departments of health are considering all of the spaces inside of a school as a congregate setting, a place where people congregate because it's a large number of people in a small space. And every single case that comes up, now, just so everybody's aware, all students must be temperature screened on a daily basis. And then periodically, there's a set of 4 questions relating to how they feel and their travel experiences and their connections with people. That questionnaire has to be asked of students via their families, if possible and if necessary, periodically. So we're looking at whether that would be every few days, daily, weekly. Staff has to be scanned for their temperature and asked the questions every single day. So if there's a change, if there's a situation where a child or a staff member presents a change to any of the questions on the questionnaire regarding their health, or if they present with a fever, that is immediate isolation of that person in our isolation center that we're going to identify within our schools, and an immediate call of our health staff and me up to Kingston. Our health staff has a direct line to the nursing staff at the Kingston Health Department, and I have a direct line through the county executive's deputy, and we've already established the connection. It works, it's clean, and each case that pops up in a school, because it's not necessarily a COVID case. I mean, someone could have a fever because they just lost a tooth. I mean, there's a lot of variance here. So every single case that pops up in a school will be directly dealt with by the health staff at Kingston Department of Health, and they will direct us specifically what to do with the situation. So there really isn't a blanket protocol, like a standard operating procedure. We have a general perspective of what we have to do once directed by the Department of Health, and the Department of Health takes that lead for all of us. But I can assure you, it will become an immediate issue for us to deal with immediately.
Okay, thank you very much for clearing that up. Thank you.
And unfortunately, it's not super clear with an answer, Karen, because every situation is going to differ. And that's the direction we've been given by Dr. Smith. Call us immediately. We'll tell you exactly what to do with the information that we know. Because we don't want to overreact and we don't want to underreact. And that really is what it comes down to. So the details matter. Hypothetical, we can all come up with a million different hypotheticals, but the details about the situation that's occurring matter so that the health department can tell us what to do from a medical perspective.
Thanks, Karen. John Merrill? You're muted, John.
I don't know why, Frank. I am not hearing you. And I don't know if that's me.
Right now, I can't hear John Merrill.
Go ahead, John. We'll come back to you. Joanne?
Anybody else having trouble hearing Frank? John, can you hear Frank?
I can hear Frank, yes.
I'm good with hearing
I don't know why.
Go ahead, Joanne.
All right, so I
can hear you now.
So do we know what the costs will be through all this, buying the new equipment, the scanners, and all of that? The wipes, do we have any idea if it's within our budget, over our budget? Do we have to replan for it?
Through the Federal CARES Act, we've received $280,000 in grant funding. That $280,000, as we sit right now, will cover the cost of technology enhancements so we can get computers into K-5 and also into our classrooms, so we can fortify our classrooms for remote learning if necessary. And it leaves a balance of somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $90,000 for PPE and cleaning supplies. We also will utilize our existing budget for cleaning supplies and things like that. So from a budgetary perspective, we have the resources in place to be able to react to this. We also have a fund balance of unencumbered funds that we can always dip into if we need to for a reserve. So we have a reserve of money that we can always dip into if there's an absolute need. But at this point, I'm not anticipating that. We have amassed a good supply of cleaning supplies, and certainly if there is a need, I will come back to this Board of Education and ask you to make transfers of funds so we can move funds into our supply lines for more cleaning supplies.
All right, so my other question would be, thank you for that. My other question, I know a while ago we talked about hotspots and putting up or getting Spectrum involved with, especially for families that do not have the internet, and especially with the hybrid, these students will need the internet. So is there a way that we can put hotspots up on our building? Or I'm not sure how the technology works. I guess Mike Precautions can answer that for me. But
yeah, we are looking at expanding our Wi-Fi outside of our building. So if there's a need for someone to stay in our parking lot to be able to access the internet, we could do that. We do have to be cautious as far as creating a congregate setting. So it's something we have to be watchful and mindful of. But through our polling and through our work in the spring, the number of families without the internet is a very, very, very small number. The problem that we were experiencing and families were experiencing in the spring was a void of devices. So you might have a situation where there are 2 or 3 children in a household with one device, and that certainly presents a complexity. So by preparing ourselves with a purchase so that we'll be able to outfit all K-5 students with their own device if we have to go to an online setting, that would be beneficial for them. 6 to 12 already has their own device, so we're going to be in a mode when we get into the fall in a situation where K-12 students all will have their own device once we get this order in, and that takes away the device issue, Joanne. So we're aware of it, and we want to help connect families with the internet if they're having difficulty with it, and we'll do whatever we need to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, because I know some of the families couldn't call Spectrum because I know they were offering it for free, but there's a catch to it. My other question would be, I know we talked about the online academy, but we can't do it. So what happens if a parent does not want to send their child? What happens then? Do they call the school and let them know that they're not doing that? Do they get paperwork from the school to do it at home? How would we help those families?
Well, currently in law and allowance for this fall, any family that wishes to can homeschool their children. That is a formal legal process that they have to apply for, provide their own resources and learning plans that are approved through Reverend Heck's office. So that is certainly an option that families have for their own homeschooling program. The online option academy that we're talking about has to be explicitly allowed under governor's orders. So we will monitor that in the coming days and weeks and pivot ourselves if we have to open up that option. But we're looking at how that develops out over the coming months. So as we sit right now, it's not an option that we can offer, but we also need to be sensitive to it. So if there are any families out there that need information on it, that would be certainly a contact to be made to Ms. Heck's office for an IHIP, which is called an IHIP, for an individual learning plan for homeschooling. So that's a different story than an online academy. An online academy, as we sit right now, is not an option for us to offer. We're just trying to prepare for it if it becomes one.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the families don't want to pull out of the school because they don't want to be doing it themselves, but they want the school to still be part of the school and have that thing. They're just frightened to send their children to
I understand.
school.
Yeah, I understand. I respect it and empathize with it. And as soon as we have information on that, whether it's possible or not, it's something that we will put out immediately. It's just as we sit tonight and the precipice of me submitting our plan tomorrow, it's not an option that exists. So, but I hear you, and it's a respected and understood issue, and I get it.
Thank you,
Thank
Joanne. John Marrow, we'll try that again. You're on mute. No, you're not on mute, but nothing's coming out. Okay, John Cantone.
Yes, Mike, I have a couple of questions on the options. So the first one where it would be a full in-person, back to school environment, right? You mentioned in your presentation that we cannot do that right now. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And basically, I think what we're saying is if the governor allows or tries to direct us back that way, we're not going to be able to do it, right? Physically, not be able to do it and follow the parameters that they've outlined at the same time.
Mike, you're muted.
So you're talking about full, everyone back in school, full on time, right? So it's almost like a catch-22. There's no way that we can maintain an environment expected in the 18 pages of requirements that I have to submit and assure to the safety protocols that are required of us for keeping children distanced and have everybody in school at the same time. So, for example, there are 36 sections in our elementary school. We have 6 grade levels. There's 6 sections a grade level. If we wanted to cut down the number of kids in half, but have them come to school every day, I'd need 36 more classrooms and 36 more staff members. So theoretically, we could say the high school is going to become an elementary school. We can definitely have 36 classrooms at the high school, but I need to hire 36 staff members to fill those classrooms, and high school would all have to be fully online. So that would be the only way we could do something like that in the elementary school. So it's paying Peter to stealing from Peter to pay Paul in that particular situation. But I'm interested to find out where the governor directs us in there. So as you read through the 144 pages worth of guidance and the 18 pages worth of check boxes and assurances that I have to check to, I and every superintendent in the area that we're connected with have no idea how we could possibly do all students, all staff, and ensure that we meet the safety protocols. It just, the two are diametrically opposed.
Okay, thanks. That was good explanation. So the other question I had was on the hybrid option. Just could you elaborate a little bit more on the cleaning protocols that are going to take place, not only on Monday when nobody's in the school, but in between the days where people are in and out of school, as well as maybe within the day?
Sure. Rose, do you want to speak to some of that?
Sure. We are working with Orange Ulster BOCES to have uniform protocols. The custodial staff currently has checklists, and as we get closer to having our school buildings open, we will be modifying those checklists and coming up with timeframes in which certain areas need to be cleaned more often. Obviously, right now, with only administrators and clerical staff in, we're not cleaning classrooms on a day-to-day basis. We are focusing on our traditional summer cleaning, and we're doing heightened cleaning in the areas where our admin and clerical is. Once school starts, we will have enhanced protocols within the classrooms. We have ordered several different types of not only just cleaners, but the electrostatic cleaners as well to help speed up the cleaning in certain areas, especially high concentrated areas like the cafeteria, gymnasiums, and areas like that. So that, like our instructional plan, is currently a work in progress to make sure that we target the areas that are most populated by students and that we clean them more frequently.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the bottom line plan is throughout the day, there'll be a protocol for cleaning in between the days as the students and teachers go home. Correct. And then, of course, the Monday when we have the biggest opportunity of empty classroom.
Correct.
Yeah, and I also think it's part of the hygiene training that's required too, is that we really want to require and expect and train people, whether they're adults or whether they're children, to maintain their own personal hygiene and their own spaces as well. So
Sure.
you've got to care for yourself and care for the people around you too. So
Sure.
whether it's physically or emotionally. So this is an enhancement for us.
Okay, just lastly, back when we were talking about space, so just curious where you guys came to when I'm sure at some point you considered outdoor classrooms or setting up tents or anything like that, or even maybe gymnasiums and cafeteria. Just maybe a quick explanation on what you did and where you landed there.
Sure. So there are allowances for expedited review by state education department if we wanted to have some alternative spaces used as classrooms. We really don't have space is a premium for us regardless. So we're tight on spacing already. We can't just eliminate a program. For example, we have gymnasiums. Theoretically, you could say, well, chop up the gymnasium into spaces and use it for instruction. But think about what is a classroom. It's not just chairs and a chalkboard. There's technology backbone. There's learning materials. There's barriers between classes. And then that's also saying, well, we're just not going to have phys ed. Well, phys ed's a requirement in the state of New York. And we, haven't lost the requirement, and in society, the need for us to enhance and encourage fitness for life. So PE is as important as any other subject. So, and let's say, John, we were to carve up a gymnasium and put 6 classrooms in a gymnasium so that we could utilize that space differently. Again, that's also 6 more teachers. So there's a budgetary issue that I know our friend Joanne Reed would be asking me about. How are you going to pay for that? So, and I respect that. I mean, these are real issues. So it's just not a feasible piece. I would imagine that we're going to be installing some coverings at the entrance to the middle school so that we can allow for inclement weather as people check in to our facilities. We will have temperature scanning equipment installed at all of our entrances. Entrances for staff and students will be minimized. The middle school and the high school will have one entrance for everyone to enter through, the main entrances. The elementary school will have the main entrance that is currently used for visitors and also for buses, and we'll still maintain the walker-rider side for our cars. And we will have the temperature screening and questionnaire requirement. But as a fail-safe, we're also installing equipment that are similar to those metal detectors that you would go through at an airport that scan for temperatures as a fail-safe, so that we can ensure that people walking into our building are at least not popping up as being a high temperature.
All right, thank you, Mike. That's all I had for questions.
You're welcome.
Mike Connors, do you have anything? I think
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Am I on? Oh, great. Good. What about the cleaning cost? I know that we're stretched on staff. Cleaning and disinfecting is going to have to be ramped up, obviously. What are we looking at in terms of where we have to be with that?
I'm anticipating coming to the board at our August 20th meeting with some requests for either shifting some funds or looking at some temporary staff to enhance our current custodial crew for during the day and during the evening. Rose and Larry are working on that proposal as we speak, so that the board will be able to consider that as part of our enhanced cleaning protocols. We can't fool ourselves to think that we can enhance our cleaning protocols with the same people that we have. I mean, think about it. Our elementary school has 2 people during the course of the regular day. So it's just something we're going to bring to you folks for consideration in the next couple of weeks when we have our meeting on the 20th. As far as the materials go, we're pretty well suited there. I think Rose last told me we're somewhere around $80,000 or $90,000 worth of supplies that we purchased in the last several weeks. Rose, maybe you want to speak to it?
Yes, we have spent close to $80,000 on cleaning supplies. We don't have everything in, but we're anticipating. We started buying in bulk in March when we first went out. So we are anticipating supplies getting better. we're looking at every avenue to get them in, but we're about $80,000 right now. And we do plan on purchasing more as time goes by. But with what we already have on order and what we have, we feel that we are good to go for September start.
So Roseanne, is that coming out of the CARES money or out of the budgeted money?
It will be coming out of the CARES money. Currently, we're ordering with our current budget, but it will be replaced once we actually receive those funds that we applied for.
Great, thank you.
James?
Yeah. I have two quick questions. First, on the online or the CNC day, is the expectation that the teachers are going to be putting together their virtual plans for their classes that day?
It's absolutely a day that can be used for that, as well as any other collaborations and communications. I mean, it's a broad definition. It's a broad definition of what that day can be used for. The expectation is that it's time for that communication and collaboration, whether it's instructional collaboration, whether it's actual communication about, little Mike in third grade that's not doing his work. That is what that day is for. It's a professional day to work on collaborating and communicating to enhance your instructional program and enhance our communications so we don't lose any children.
Okay. Just a follow-up to that. What is the time restrictions or the time restraints going to be on the children on the virtual days? How much time are we expecting our kids to be sitting in front of the screen?
Great question. That's that instructional model that our leadership team and our teacher leaders and our principals are working on right now. I would expect that will be available for presentation to you by the 20th, so that will be clear for you. But also importantly, we need to communicate that out to families. So that's something that's being debated and discussed right now. Like I said, it needs to enhance the rigor and really the structure of where we were in the springtime, but also allow for significant flexibility based upon families' structures and needs. So we have to figure out how to strike that balance. And I'm going to begin hearing some of the foundations of that proposal tomorrow morning with our admin staff. But I met virtually with all of our department chairs and team leaders earlier in this week, and they are fully charged and ready and beginning their work, and have been working on it, by the way, under Robin Hecht. But they fully understand the plan you're looking at tonight, and they know their charge and are coming up with what that is. So I'm not ready to preempt it because they're working on it. But that's we need to be clear, but also flexible, and striking that balance of increasing the rigor and the structure, but not getting to the point where we overtax a family because of rigor and structure. And I don't know what that is yet, James, but I will once our professionals inform me on it.
And then my last question that I'm seeing pop up a bunch is, can you speak to the air handling systems in the schools? I know the malls needed to go to a MERV 13. What's our current situation?
I think Rose actually can speak to that.
I actually was on a webinar today regarding that. Currently, the elementary school does have MERV 13 filters. That is the newest system. So they do have those MERV 13 filters, as well as some HEPA filters in certain units. And please, Larry Cavazza is the expert on this. But we have discussed the middle and high school. There has been no direct mandate to upgrade to MERV 13. They're stated just as early as this morning that as long as you have 8 or above, it's sufficient. We do have 8 in the other 2 buildings. We are looking at where we can enhance to the MERV 13 in certain areas. And again, there are certain spots where additional HEPA filters can be placed into the system. I know that Larry has worked with his staff this summer to replace all filters, regardless of the MERV rating. So he's finishing up at the high school currently. So they're all new, clean filters, and he has a very set schedule on when they need to be replaced. Any specific questions regarding the filters, I certainly will relay to him, and he can certainly educate us all on the appropriate filters.
No, that was great. I actually have one more question. Sorry. When it comes to students with IEPs, especially students in inclusion classrooms, what is their day going to look like? I know there's a lot of services that need to be done. How are we planning for those services to be delivered to the students? Are we looking at home? Are we looking at school? I know they throw a lot more into the school day, but how are we addressing that? And then I'm done. I promise.
Robin, do you want to speak to that, Robin? Do we have Robin?
You're muted, Robin.
It's just taking a moment for her.
I'm sorry, it just wouldn't do it. Thank you. That is also part of the planning that we are presently doing. I am working closely with the Director of Special Education, and we are planning to work with our department chairs and with our special education teachers and our support services to come up with those finite plans. So that is definitely on our radar.
Thank you, James. Joanne, you had another question? You're next, Karen. Joanne, you're muted.
Come on. There we go.
There you go.
I've got to get a mouse for this or figure out how to do it a little quicker. Sorry, guys. Okay. So one question someone just asked me was, because we said we're going to be getting the iPads from K through 5, I believe. What happens if they don't come?
No, we're looking at, Robin, maybe you want to speak to this? I think you've been doing the work on this. So.
Or even the Chromebooks.
Yes. Mike Picazius and myself have been working with the numbers, and presently we were going to outfit tentatively the kindergartens with iPads and then 1 through 5 with Chromebooks.
Okay. So
we don't have all of that in stock yet. So that's part of, we ordered 500 Chromebooks today. So once those come in, then we'll be able to fulfill all of this.
Well, that was my question, was what happens if they don't come in, because everybody's ordering them now? And what happens if we don't get them in until like December or January?
I don't think it would be that. I mean, Mike's got a little more hand on the pulse there as far as the availability. I don't think it would be that long, but it is what it is. I mean, we will get them in the hands as soon as we will get them in children's hands as soon as we can possibly get them in children's hands.
Okay, thank you.
Karen?
Okay, a couple more questions. With the Chromebooks and the iPads and going in the district, is that something that the kids with the 2 days a week, will they be leaving those home, or will they be expected to carry those back and forth to school so they use them at school and at home?
I think that there's probably some flexibility to that, and that's something that may be dependent on the grade level as well. I don't know, Robin, if you can speak to that yet, Robin, or if that's kind of under development in our planning.
It is under development. We are looking at 5th grade as possibly taking them home, but we also need the children to be introduced to the Chromebooks, and the teachers are going to be developing lessons to help them navigate the Chromebook. So I don't think that would be something we would jump right into, but yes, it's under development.
Okay. And then the last question I had was, it's on the remote days when kids are home for 2 days and then the Monday, and then the home 2 days, so 3 days home. I have some parents asking me how much contact can they expect the kids to have with teachers or staff those days, or is that really just going to be for the teachers to chase after the kids that aren't actually doing any remote work?
So the CNC day is really that communications day. The Tuesday through Friday, the teachers are teaching every day in person. It's just half their class at any given time. So
they should expect assignments then that day, not really less necessary contact with lessons or contact with the teacher.
that's probably a good way to describe it, Karen. Yeah.
Okay. And then
But that's
finally,
also what's under development. So I know that the specifics about that will absolutely be presented as Robin finishes with that instructional planning group.
well, it makes sense too, because if they're teaching both of those days, it's really hard for them to get back. And if a parent does have a question and they email a teacher, how long what's the time frame that they should expect a response? And I know I wouldn't expect immediate. Would it be 24, 48 hours? What would a reasonable response time be?
I think that I have a significantly shorter threshold than 24 to 48 hours. I would think that same day service is a very reasonable thing for us to all expect. Certainly, if you email someone at 5, 6, or 7 o'clock at night, you may not get same day service. But if you email them in the morning, and you should get back an answer that day. So there should be significantly enhanced communications on a daily basis from all of us. And I live to that same standard myself. I do my best to get back to people as quickly as possible.
And one last thing, people are asking why Monday was chosen as the collaboration and communication day, and I know you have a good reason for that. So I was wondering if you could share that with the parents.
Sure. It's when we looked at the calendar. Mondays are the days during the course of the school year where there are the most holidays. So it is least impactful on an educational year if we move that day, if they have that day on a Monday. There are a number of schools that are considering, and we looked at an AABB model. That's where Monday and Tuesday, Group A would attend school, and Thursday and Friday, Group B would attend school. And then Wednesday would have been a day between those two groups for the collaboration and communication, but also some districts were calling that a deep cleaning day. And I immediately asked the question of myself, isn't every day a deep cleaning day?
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Be cleaning well every single day. So really the choice for Monday became almost a default because it's the day that there are the most, I think it's 6 or 7 holidays during the course of the year fall on a Monday. So it's least impactful to the educational week by doing it on Monday.
My last thing is a comment that I just want to make to you, your educational team. I've seen a lot of these presentations, knowing that I work in a school district myself, looking at everything that's going on. And I have to tell you, your plan that you're presenting is very well thought out compared to others that I've seen. And I can tell that you've put countless hours into this. And I have to thank you all for involving the teachers and the parents on so many of these committees. I think that you've done an excellent job. And thank you. And thank you, Maria. You really put our kids at the number one concern for what you've done. And I just want to say thank you very much to the whole team.
You're welcome, Karen. We work hard. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for your questions, and Mike and your team for the input. I know I speak for the whole board, just like Karen did. The work and the lift on this has been tremendous. And it's really a pleasure to see what's come together. And we clearly all know that all this work is really just an outline for what we're going to have to wait and see what the governor tells us we're going to be able to or not be able to do. So it's really just putting us in the driving seat once he makes a decision so we know which way we're heading.
Sure. Next steps are which group am I in, and then what are my kids' schedules? I mean, those are next steps that the principals are working feverishly on with their staff. So you're right, Frank. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to endorse the district return to learn plan. Karen, can I have a second? James? Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the roll. So if you can turn your microphones on. If you can't get your microphone to work, just get your thumb ready and I'll call it that way. John Cantor?
Yes.
John Marrow? Thumbs up. Okay. Karen Brooks?
Yes.
Joanne Reed?
Yes.
Mike Connors?
Yes.
And James Mullen?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries 7-0. You have a motion to suspend public comment on the regular agenda items in accordance with the governor's executive order. Karen, second. James, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Got seven thumbs. Motion carried 7-0. So move to the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, wrong one. There we go. Computer's slow. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the personnel recommendations and authorizes Superintendent Brooks to approve change orders to Project Vision 2020 under $20,000. Can I have a motion? Karen, a second? John Marrow? Any discussion?
Frank,
Mike?
presently, what is the latitude afforded the superintendent on the contracts?
And, for currently, all change orders have to come to the board. And the change orders all have to be within the scope and the monetary guidelines of the thing. It's just so that there is no losing of 2 weeks possibly between board meetings on a normal thing, so the project can keep moving forward, and it would they'd have to be under $20,000.
So there's no de minimis provision in place now?
No, that's what this is going to become.
Okay.
I personally do not feel comfortable doing that because it is such a big project. I think we need to be involved with it, especially being on facilities. I think we need to know what's going to happen, how it's going to be changed, and not go up to say, oh, that was done, and then we didn't know about it. So
let me be clear on that too, Joanne, so that you're aware. All change orders will be reviewed by the facilities committee, whether we can remote meet or in-person meet. But that's something that we would, as a standard operating procedure, the way it works is a contractor, right now we just have a site contractor. So a contractor identifies a change in conditions. So it's a CIC, change in conditions. So for example, they started digging and something in what they were digging in presented a change that was not reflected in the planning. One of those, I'll give you an example, as they were digging the new entrance road, there was a lot of water coming out of the ground. So there was groundwater coming up, and that required them to dig and put in a new culvert and catch basin in order to move that water away from that area. That's a change in conditions. So that would be something that would be reflected in a change order. In order for the contractor to be granted authority to move forward on that and assure that they're going to get paid, someone has to sign the change order. And that order needs to be approved ultimately by either your authority giving it to me, which is where our attorney said, let's keep it at $20,000, or all change orders would go to the full board for consideration. I'm just presenting to you that if we have all of the smaller change orders that are under $20,000 waiting for the Board of Education, it's going to literally hold up the project for the next year and a half in fits and starts. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on the process. When the contractor identifies an issue, it's reviewed by our architect, it's debated and negotiated and, quite honestly, advocated by our construction manager. Construction Management Jacobs is our advocate in the process, oversees the construction, and makes sure that the price that the contractor is quoting is an appropriate price. He goes out on the street, he gets prices for materials, he gets prices for contracts, he's got a database of how costing can be developed. And when and if a contractor says, well, this thing's going to cost $50 more, he'll turn back around and come with data saying, I'm sorry, it's $35. And Rose and I witnessed it, the haggling occurs. And it's not haggling to get the price down, it's just making sure that he's our advocate, so that ultimately what becomes part of a change is our benefit, and we can deliver our project the way that we're expecting it to be delivered and on time. If we don't do this, I'm telling you now, it will absolutely delay our ability to finish this project on time. Anything over $20,000 is really not de minimis. Great word, Mike, by the way. It's not de minimis. It's a significant change, and that should go back to the Board of Education. So, and that's something that we commit to all of this reviewing with the Facilities Committee on a regular basis.
Well, again, I'm not comfortable with this.
So
I have to, no pun intended or whatever, but we went through this with the high school, with the changes here and there. Those little changes add up to big money.
None of it
and I
will
think
be over budget.
Board should be more involved
all,
with this.
But all of this is within the budget. We will not spend more than 19.5 million, and I've shown that my expectation and hope is that we spend less than let me finish. I hope we spend less than 19.5 million on this project. And you see my budgetary work year to year. I try to spend less than we budget every year in our regular operating budget. So you know my mindset going into it. So that's,
and I understand
that.
And I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to
vote no. I get that. So
I just feel more comfortable that the whole board knows what's going on. It's taxpayers' money, and doing changes. The whole board should be a part of it.
We will notify the entire board of any changes that take place through change order. So now there's some other questions
without all of us. So it's up to everybody else.
James?
Just to what you were saying, Mike, I'm okay with it as long as afterwards we're provided with the change orders with the new pricing or the adjusted pricing. I just feel transparency in that is really important. I have no problem. I don't want the projects to be delayed. But as long as afterwards we're receiving, okay, these were the changes that needed to be made as a board. So then when we're asked about it, we can speak to, okay, these were provided to us. We understand the scope and it was explained why these changes needed to happen.
Fair, and we'll provide that in writing. Fair, and we'll provide that in writing and be as timely as possible, if not prior to me signing, immediately after, but that's fair. These are not surprises to us. Rose is on site several days a week and meeting with the contractors and meeting with the construction management. So these are not surprises, but prior to actually executing something, it's something I will commit to making sure the board is aware of.
Yeah, and just on that note, before I move on to Mike, is that the facilities committee, and there's no reason we can't have everybody get them. There's regular progress meetings with very, very detailed notes. You know, gotta spend the time reading them, but it spells out all these different conditions and everything that goes on. The facilities committee has been getting those all along. So I don't see any reason why just as well. This way, if somebody that's not on a facilities committee wants to forward a question to one of us that is, you know, this way, as we're going through these meetings, we have everybody's thoughts and stuff on it. We'll get those out, make sure that Roseanne copies everybody when we send those out. Mike?
Thank you, Frank. In a changing condition, I absolutely understand the need to do that to keep things moving. However, I was looking at the change orders, and thank you for providing them. But there was an incident, I think, with the band room where after they cleared a wall out, they actually went to the outside. How did the architect not pick that up when doing the design in the first place?
Well, it wasn't a matter of that he didn't pick it up. The big issue there was we were originally supposed to let 2 contracts at once. So that work would have been part of the interiors contract. But because that bid came in so high, we opted, because there weren't a lot of bidders, opted not to award that. So the facilities committee knew there were going to be some of those things specifically, you know, going back several months ago, that was a chance that was going to happen, work that would have been covered under the other contract. So in reality, although it is a change order to the site prep contractors, it's going to be a savings on the interior contract when that one goes out, because that work's already going to be done.
So as I understand it, then we're still within the original budget, or we're within the budgeted amount, even with the change orders.
Yes, we can't legally for anything go beyond the approved dollar amount from the public. So it's not like you know, your own personal, like if you're doing something with a contract, you do a change and now you're writing checks above what you originally agreed to. we have an authorized dollar amount, and we can't spend 1 penny more without public approval.
So there's contingencies built into all of the construction plans. And every time a change order is approved, it's chewing into the contingency amounts. But none of it will allow us to exceed the $19.5 million total project cost. It's just really authorizing a change to the contract for that contractor to adjust for the change in conditions that occurred on the site.
Yeah, but Mike Brooks, what Mike Connors suggested doesn't really fit into that category, right? Because what would have been spent in the interior contract is now going to be spent in the exterior and not spent there. So there isn't a net change of an increase that would go into contingency money. It's just a reallocation, really, because of the reasons Frank suggested, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but
So in that particular case, I know you made a broader explanation.
In this contract, it'll eat into the contingency of this awarded contract. Although in our big picture, 100%, John. But in this specific contract, it's going to eat into the contingency for what we agreed to. But we're not limited contractually to that awarded amount when you deal with change orders. It's just the total dollar amount where you're limited in the end.
And the detailed tracking on this, by the way, is significantly more detailed than the paperwork that you get here as far as tracking the budget. So construction management tracks the budget to the penny, as does our architect. So this is all tracked down literally to the penny on managing the budget of the entire project. So part of the discussions on this is how does it impact our entire budget? So that's the broader sense of things. So,
Karen?
Yeah, I have to say, I think most of you know, with my family, the construction background, I have no problem with this. I actually think it's a good idea because it could really hold things up. And when you look at construction costs, $20,000 is not that much money when you're dealing with buildings and construction. So I think this is a good idea as long as people let us know what's happening in advance. And I have to say, Mike's very good at doing that and letting us know when things are happening. So I have to say I support this.
All right. So I've been through this with the high school project and everything else. So this is why I'm a little leery. Sorry, Mike. I know it's a different person, different animal or whatever. But so what I want to know is, because I was there when you were presenting the project. So that means you cannot change anything in this project. If there's a band room that has to go up, you can't sit there and say, take that wall and move it to the left side, not to the right side. Or that design. Is that correct?
Actually, it's bigger than that, Joanne. Our plans, the thousands of pages of plans that have been approved by State Education Department, you can't do that without going back to the State Education Department to make that change. So it's significantly more complicated than move this wall to this wall.
Well, they did that with the project.
Joanne, let me finish. We are indebted to our taxpayers that voted yes for this project to deliver the project that they voted for. And there's a legal description of what that project is. So we are absolutely required to do that work. The detailed drawings that are literally thousands of pages of drawings for the three schools, all approved by the State Education Department, cannot be altered without the State Education Department reviewing those, because any alteration could change HVAC, it could change emergency systems, it could change fire, it could change lighting and electrical, it could change egress. All of those, any of those changes impacts any of those systems has to be approved by the New York State Education Department, which is the issuing agency for a building permit.
And Joanne, anything like that would originate at the facilities committee,
right?
You know, and it would be much more than $20,000 to make any structural.
If there's a material change,
you'd be involved.
Joanne, let me make a commitment to you, Joanne. Let me make a commitment. If there is a material change, first of all, the facilities committee will be aware of change orders. The whole board will be made aware of change orders. If there's a material change because there's some kind of a wall that needs to be moved or something like that, the facilities committee will be keenly involved in that dialogue and decision-making process, as they have been for the last year or so. So my standard operating procedure is what you know, Joanne.
So All right. So before you would sign something for, I don't know, $10,000, the facilities committee would be notified, correct? First?
The board's going to be aware of this, Joe, and you know how I
Okay.
communicate.
I'm okay with it then.
Any other comments? Okay, please turn your microphones on so we can do the roll. John Cantone.
Yes.
John Marrow is a yes. Karen Brooks?
Yes.
Yes. Joanne Reed?
Yes.
Mike Connors?
Yes.
James Mullen?
Yes.
And myself is yes.
Are we going to talk about personnel?
I actually want to speak to a couple of people
You
that
just approved the personnel actions.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead,
can I
Mike.
speak to a couple of people that just got appointed.
Yep.
Okay, so I would like to congratulate Mariah Cooney, who was just appointed as a secondary science and students with disabilities teacher. Mariah is anxious and eager to get started with us here in Marlboro and is joining a fantastic team. She's got a strong background with special education and she's a certified science teacher. So she's got certifications in adolescent biology, grades 7 through 12, and also students with disabilities, 7 through 12. That dual certification fits perfectly within our program needs at the high school. And she did her master's work and her bachelor's work at Mount St. Mary's College. Congratulations, Mariah, and welcome to Marlboro. I'd also like to congratulate Dante Morocco, who is going to be joining our elementary school to take over our band program. Dante went to Ithaca College and got his bachelor's in music education at Ithaca College, and he's going to begin working on his master's certified in music education. Dante, welcome to Marlboro and to Marlboro Elementary School.
Great, thank you, Mike.
The secretary, can you let everyone know that these are all replacements? This was not
Correct.
something that
yes. Okay.
Mike, could you remind me again, the Mariah Cooney, she's going to be replacing what science teacher?
Now Mariah is a brand new position that you folks authorized back at the end of June, beginning of July. I think actually at the July meeting, that was that enrollment need at the high school, special education specific for science. It was the shortfall of sections. Dante is filling the position of our retired band teacher.
Okay. When you were explaining the credentials for K through 12, somehow I thought you had
the certification is K-12 for music.
Right. Somehow
in the elementary school.
Somehow I interpreted that for like maybe it was being applied somewhere else. So sorry, you're right. I do remember that.
Yeah, gotcha.
I have one more question. When will we know about the sports?
The answer is unknowable right now. So I don't have an answer for you. We'll know when the governor and the athletic association tells us. There's no defined timeline.
And the big thing is to whether or not and what those will actually be. As we've talked, clubs and sports and maybe ways to do things online remotely to keep people engaged, depending on what the governor allows or doesn't allow.
The clubs I get, no offense, I'm not trying to be mean, but how do you play baseball virtually?
Well, there's skills and practice.
And hit the ball.
There's skills and practices that coaches could give people to do to keep them in shape and keep them moving, just like we do in the off season with everything else. So there's lots of other things other than just the park. Because remember, if you followed the New York State Public High Schools, one of the things they've talked about is this modified 3 seasons that'll start in January with winter sports, and then we'll go to fall sports after winter sports, and then spring sports will start later in the year, depending on what they say.
So when we know more about the sports, I'm telling you, it'll be a hot topic for all of us. I would imagine it's going to be sometime in September.
Yeah. Okay. Move on to recommended actions. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, authorize the superintendent of schools to approve change orders CICSW 01001, CICSW 01002, CICSW 01003, CICSW 01004, CICSW 01005, and CICSW 01006 for the project Vision 2020 as presented. Can I have a motion to approve the first 6 change orders? Joanne, second. James, any further discussion? I'll call the roll. John Cantone.
Yes.
John Marrow. Karen Brooks. John's a yes.
Yes.
Joanne Reed is a yes. Mike Connors
Yes.
and James Mullen.
Yes.
Okay. And myself is a yes, 7-0. The final recommended action, resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of schools, approve the updated 2020-21 school calendar as presented and discussed earlier tonight. Can I have a motion to approve the new school calendar? Joanne, second. Somebody? Karen, thank you. Any discussion?
Quick question. This is John. Mike, it looked like the only material change is that the first week you've now made the entire week superintendent conferences, which you mentioned before in your presentation. The part about 25% people coming in, of students coming in the following week, that's not indicated there, and that's not really something we're voting on right now, right? That's just something.
Well, what we did on the calendar, what we wrote for the 8th through the 11th, we wrote 8th through 11th student opening week, and then we'll send out a letter which details that more. It's impossible to delineate how that's 25% each school, and it's going to be a little bit different for each of the schools. So that will be a letter that goes out sooner than later to families once the principals and I make some determination as to which 25% on any given day. The other material changes, we've canceled the other superintendent's conference days in the rest of the year. So
Okay.
they've all been moved to the beginning of the school year.
So just real quick on the 25% a day in the second week, what does that? I don't think I ever asked about that. What does that mean? Only a subset of students will come in just to get acclimated and start exercising the protocols and things like that?
Correct. We've got 4 days. We figure we try to reduce the number of students coming so that they can get more comfortable with it. We can practice safety protocols. We can walk them around and show exactly how we're going to use different spaces. And since it's 4 days, we figured it's an even split with 25% of the day.
But more-
A nice soft opening.
It's more of an orientation than
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I. Great. Thanks.
Karen?
I'm good.
Thanks.
I've got a. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. My question, I'm still trying to work this out in my head with the soft opening. So my concern is our faculty right now is a mix of seasoned and young faculty with a lot of young kids that are in schools themselves. So, and also teachers tend to marry teachers. So our faculty tends to, I'm worried that there might be an issue with the soft rolling with them being there and they're not having anywhere for their kids to go or for, you understand what I'm saying? I'm just worried. Is there anywhere there could be precedence for those kids to be in the soft rolling?
And there's a bigger issue than that, Karen, because with their, if they have children, their children are going to be on an A-B schedule anyhow.
True.
It's not going to be just a week of soft opening. That's going to be just like every other parent in the district that works. It's going to be the same issue for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm just worried too about other educators that might work in other districts that their kids go to our school district, because I haven't heard any other districts doing a soft opening. You would know better if there are, but I haven't really heard too many, and I'm just a little I'm nervous about that.
Yep, I hear you. I think that there will be a lot of variety in how school districts open up, but I think a lot are looking at these first 2 weeks in a varied approach to soft open up the schools. That's my term. I'm just using soft open up. But listen, I respect that this is entirely disruptive to all of society right now. Not going to school every day for every child, beginning at the first part of September all the way through the latter part of June, is immensely disruptive to all of society. So yeah, you're right, Karen, and this is something that we are going to be struggling through on how this is going to and what impact this is going to have on society as a whole. I think if we don't create this environment where there's listen, I'm thinking of the youngest ones in our school. They're going to be walking into a school, and there's going to be medical people around that are preparing for illness, and there are going to be adults with masks on, and we're going to soften it up as we possibly can to make it so that it's not a scary environment. Certainly want to send the message, and we'll continue to repeat it as we communicate out through August. If you haven't already gotten your children used to wearing masks, regardless of their age, please start that now. Don't make the day before school be the first time they're wearing a mask. So yeah, this is going to be a monumental effort to reintroduce all of us back into these spaces and really dealing with that emotional side of bringing people back together. Not only have we missed each other, there are a good number of people that are very worried about reintroducing into this environment, and doing it in a way that slowly integrates, I think, is probably our most prudent effort, which is why I'm presenting it this way. But yeah, there are daycare issues across the board.
And I'm like I said, I'm more concerned about the 1 hour delay than I am the soft rolling. Because if you're going to make a commitment, you can find something for the day. It's when you do a 1 or 2 hour delay that I'm a little concerned about.
It's a good point, Karen. And then let me just make that as a consideration right now. Because the idea behind the delayed opening was so that we can make sure that we're all set and ready prior to student arrival. Remember, at the high school, it's 7:30 in the morning. So,
right.
We want to make sure that our schools and our staff are all ready and staged for when the children arrive. So and
also that the buses are cleaned.
So, yeah,
and also that the buses are cleaned.
And it's starting a new system for us. So it does time to get those gears rolling. No pun intended, I guess, but it does take, and I am concerned about it from an organizational perspective that we have to do it right. We certainly don't want to create a system, make a mistake, and then end up with some infections that we shouldn't have ended up with. So we want to make sure we build in the right protocols and be able to practice in a with a smaller number of people at any given time, so that we can do it right when we introduce more people.
If we could just give the parents enough time, like if we could just give the parents enough time. So like if we are going to do an hour delay, if we could give them at least a week's notice, that we know that would, I think, would be a big help.
With their winter all the time. 1 and 2 hour delays when other districts don't have it.
Right. The other thing we all have to remember is this is strictly one of 3 plans. We have no idea if we're doing this. It's not something we get to decide. So this is just one of 3 plans. So we've got a plan for all these contingencies, but we won't know until the governor. We want to give everybody as much notice as possible. And if we've seen enough in the last 5 or 6 months with the governor, we have no idea. He may say one thing next Friday of what he's planning. If there's any change in any numbers, it could be the day before and he changes his mind. We've seen that. We've seen that with things was supposed to happen that didn't. So,
James, I didn't hear what you said before.
Mike, I just said that we deal with that as it is now with 2 hour delays, 1 hour delays, 3 hour delays during the winter when teachers are working in different districts. It would be more in our own district, but when they work in other districts, it's something they have to deal with currently. So that's nothing new for the teaching staff.
And we'll make sure that we broadcast this widely and decide as soon as we possibly can. I think we rolled out a pretty significant amount of detail tonight. This is just not a detail yet for that specifics on that week, I'd like to roll out the times and the who at the same time. So that would be the communication going out with specific times and specific days, so you know when. Because if we are 25% of the population on any given day, that means 3 days that week you will not be going to school. So you're only attending school 1 day. So that 1 hour delay, while it's certainly impactful, it's not as impactful as the 3 other days that you're not in school. So there's still it's a daycare issue. I'm telling you, this is a real societal issue. I am philosophically struggling with how, in the broader sense, this is not just a Marlboro piece. How can society fully reopen without elementary schools fully opening? And I don't know. We're going to watch this socialization. We're going to watch the social experiment occur as we unfold this fall around the country.
Right. I was just going to say, this is not only us, Karen. This is the whole United States. Everybody's in the same pot. I've noticed on Facebook, parents are starting to put up looking for daycare or childcare because you can't overload a daycare either. They're limited to their space just like we are. So it's hard. I mean, I know my boys are older, but they're in a day program. They're still not. One has just gone back and is only limited to 4 hours a day. And he's the only person on the bus.
I get that, but my concern is more the 1 hour delay. If we're only district doing a 1 hour delay, that creates a big deal. And I know teachers are used to it throughout the year, but when there's snow, it's not just snowing in Marlboro. It's usually the whole region that has a 2 hour delay. If we have a 1 hour delay and we're the only district, it makes it very hard for and I'm not just emphasizing for teachers, I'm emphasizing for any parent that has a kid going into an employer and a job. They don't understand the 1 hour delay. And that's just my point. I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time. I'm still working it through my head.
I understand.
So if they don't know about a 1 hour delay, like James said, this goes on all the time.
Yeah,
and
guys,
we're not, and there's times that we're the only school district closed.
This
We're the
is
only
just about it.
Okay. Yeah, we everybody, we shouldn't do the back and forth. We each get to voice our concerns to Mike, and he's going to take that all in. Remember, we're approving the calendar. Really, the only thing we're approving is the fact that we're moving the superintendent days to the first week. Whether the superintendent holds a delay or does 25%, that's within his operational protocols. It's good for us to give input and everything, but we're really technically all we're moving are the superintendent conference days. Mike Connors?
Now, we're doing this regardless of which plan the governor in his infinite wisdom chooses, correct?
Yes, because either way, whatever plan we go with, there's things that have to happen, whether it's training for them because we're all going to be back in the building, or training for them to get ready to do all online. The only change that may be is we may not be able to do it if he says you can't come into the building.
Right. No, I think it's a good strategy. Are we putting out a newsletter prior to opening?
Multiple. We are. Like, there'll be multiple pieces of communication. My first letter goes out tomorrow. And then we're going to put out a series of connections newsletters during the month of August as details unfold. And then specifics will come out from guidance counselors and from principals about specific programs in schools. So there'll be a lot more information coming out.
But the big newsletter that comes out, there'll be one more of those?
I don't know that it'll be in that form because it takes time to print and distribute because that's done through the mass mailing. But we'll like, for example, tomorrow my letter is going to be going out on our alert system and first class mail. So that way it gets into people's mailboxes physically, by Monday or Tuesday. So it's not efficient timing wise to do the big newsletters.
Right. But if the big newsletter was coming out, say mid-September anyway, to ratchet it up, I mean, it's much more difficult to lose than a regular piece through the mail.
Correct. So there's a good possibility. It may actually end up being first class mail because of speed, because it may not be a full newsletter. It might just be, a front and back newsletter. But we'll see, and we'll use the online system widely, I should say.
The other problem is we realized when we were doing the budget issues is that newsletter doesn't make it to all of our residents properly because it's done bulk mail normally, and all of Newburgh isn't in our district. So those
Yeah,
have
Newburgh
to.
gets delayed by 3 or 4 days because of the way it gets mailed out. So the rest of the community gets it, and Newburgh gets it 3 or 4 days later. I'm sorry, James. I've been.
Right.
It's okay. We were talking about delays and snow days. I don't expect you to have a plan for it right now, but if we're in a hybrid or a virtual model, does that end snow days as we know it?
Most likely.
Yeah,
Just
why would we
something
need a snow day if they can learn remotely? Why would we need a snow day?
Most likely.
Might be breaking children's hearts right now, but I feel like it's important to get out there.
Yeah, but remember,
You just
They've
did.
got to go. It still goes back to the governor. Every school has to have snow days, and it's tied to funding. So
Well,
that'll have to change. If
he would have to give us authority to allow online days to count towards the 180. That's the 180-day rule that I spoke of earlier. So any executive order that he presents or executive orders that he presents would have to grant specific authority that online instruction counts towards the 180. Because right now in regulation and law, it does not.
John Marrow?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I figured it out. No, no comments really. My questions that I had earlier, Mike answered. Great job tonight, everybody. I'm just happy I fixed my mic.
We are too. Okay, so we'll move to a vote on the change to the calendar. I'll call the roll if everybody can turn their microphones on. John Cantone?
yes,
John Marrow?
Yes.
There we go. Karen Brooks?
Yes.
Joanne Reed? Is he yes? Mike Connors?
Yes.
James Mullen?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carried 7-0. Do we have any new business? Do we have any old business? Do we have any other items? Okay, we have, go ahead, Joanne.
Okay. I just wanted to know, as of July 1st, we started our new budget, if everything was closed out, and if we're going to get the paperwork on where we started. Did we allow extra spending in it, each building, if we didn't? So I'm hoping for the August meeting to get those questions where we stand with all of that, where we were at the end of the year, at the end of June.
The audit committee has a meeting. We're working on scheduling a meeting for next month before that meeting, so that by the August 20th meeting, we're ready to report out on all of that.
Right. We have the rough numbers for the audit, and the finance committee and audit committee will be meeting hopefully on the 17th. We have a request out to meet with our auditor. So then on the 20th, the Board of Education will be setting our reserves and also our tax rates based upon the results of our 2019, the 19-20 budget. So we'll be good by the 20th.
So will that tell us that how much money each building got, or each building did not spend, or if we had to give more money into it?
Or we'll speak about it. Well, you've heard them every year. Audits aren't spoken of by building; they're spoken of by district. So it'll be an audit of our entire budget. But we'll have our fund balance, and you'll know what we were underspent by the 20th.
But each building has a budget, correct?
I'm not at all prepared to talk about budget tonight, Joanne. I'm not at all prepared to talk about it.
I just would like to know if each building stayed within their budget, or did we add to it?
We will be prepared to talk about the audit after we meet with the audit committee on the 17th and at the August 20th meeting. I'm not prepared to talk about it tonight, Joanne. Not that I don't want to tell you.
No problem.
I don't have information.
Right. Those are just questions I'm putting out there, so the next time we meet, maybe we'll have an answer.
Audit.
Thank you.
Well, and remember, Joanne, you're talking about creating something that doesn't readily exist. And as by policy, if we want the district to prepare a specialized report broken down into a very low level of detail, then that's something the board as a whole would have to take a vote on. We have a large budget.
Correct. So what you're saying to me is nobody has a budget. No building has a budget. I mean, even in a 514 company, every department has a budget.
Joanne, let me help
Yeah.
you. We have a significant executive session tonight. I guarantee you we will dedicate substantial time to the audit at the August 20 meeting. You know what the audit looks like. You've seen it every year of your year on the board. If the Board of Education, through the audit committee, wants to change how the auditor audits our books, which is a standard auditing process determined by the comptroller of the state of New York, that would be something that the Board of Education could do by policy change, and we would pay the auditor to do more work to do anything that the board wants to do. So right now, I'm not prepared to speak at all about it just because I'm not prepared. That's what the August 20th meeting's for.
Any other items? Okay, we have a proposed executive session to talk about the employment history of a particular person. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? Karen, second. Joanne, there'll be no action after the executive session. So all in favor of going into exec, just a thumbs up is fine. James? Yes, okay, 7-0. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you all on the 20th. Hopefully not have to do before. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Joel, let us know when the stream is ended.
We're just waiting for confirmation when the stream is off.